Hello, everyone, and welcome. I was just taking a minute so that we were totally live, and I see that we are now. So, I am Maribel Jimenez, and I want to welcome you to the new Superwoman Pathway: How to Have More Peace, Playfulness, and Prosperity in Your Business and Life. And this is a special invitation-only presentation. I love sharing about the new Superwoman way to do business and enjoy in your life. This one is really special because you were invited through a specific community to join me and share a few things that maybe I haven't shared before. So I want to start by, first of all, welcoming you because you may be new to me, maybe you've never heard of me, and I'd like to, welcome you to this special webinar, video webinar, and glad that you're here. And I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself and what had me even talk about the new Superwoman. What is the new Superwoman? Because it's not Superwoman syndrome, which is all about being all things to everyone. So it's not that. It's actually the opposite, and it's been a part of my own journey. It's the opposite of now tapping into that I could live a life in the way that I wanted, that I could really create success and balance with the way I wanted to do business. And of course, I wanted to create success, but I'm also happily married. I also have 3 kids. Actually, one I don't consider a kid anymore. He's 18. He's officially an adult. And just enjoying the role there, and actually have a great business that I love doing every day of my life. So that was my goal, and in my journey, I figured out the way not to do it because early on, I'll just give you a little bit of history and I'll make it brief, but just so you know why I'm even talking about this. So for 15 years, I did business development and marketing, and I did that in a traditional employee role, right? I did management, I worked for a nonprofit, I worked for a retail, I worked for a hospital administration. I mean, my passion really, I love to do marketing. And so I worked my way up in management and learned how to do it. And of course, being I was an employee, and there's generally one spot at the top, I learned how to do it alone, right? Like develop my skills, I overworked, I overperformed. I just learned how to do it by myself and work my way up. Then I decided, when I realized that, I had a burning desire to start my own business, that I just wasn't going to put it off anymore. I really, and not to mention I had a boss that was just turned into a nightmare. So I really wanted to finally take the leap and just be willing to have a business of my own, which I desired all the way since as long as I could remember. I was probably 5 years old when I had the desire to have a business for myself. And so I went ahead and took the leap, and I did my best to figure it out, and I'd like to say that it was easy, but it absolutely wasn't. My first year in business was so hard, and I'll tell you some of the nuggets of why it was so hard. It was because I was living more of a Superwoman syndrome life, to be honest. I was exhausted, I was burnt out, I did a lot of things on my own, and I tried to learn how to figure stuff out online on my own. I didn't know how to do a lot of things, so I was constantly taking courses, constantly trying to learn how to do everything. And because I did marketing, man, was there a lot to learn when you do marketing online. So I was trying to learn every strategy, and so it was no wonder that I became burnt out. And I finally realized through a mentor that told me that, what are you doing? Why are you trying to do this alone? You need to be focused on your gifts, focused on what you're here to do, and ask for support. Ask for people that know how to do the things that are hard for you, and take care of me. I was last on the list. I made sure everything was getting taken care of except myself, so I would just practically drop in my bed in exhaustion every night because laundry needed to get done, the house needed to get clean, along with running a business. And at the beginning, it meant talking to a lot of people who, I wasn't even good at expressing what I did. So it meant a lot of conversations, networking, events, trainings. So it's just a lot of stuff. And so it took a really painful experience for me to shake myself out of that way and realized that life was too short and I needed to figure out a way that I could do it in a way that was fun and a way that I enjoyed. And so what that particular situation was was a phone call that I received at 2 a.m. in the morning when my son was admitted into the hospital. At that time, he was visiting his dad, and so he wasn't home, and I just got the phone call that something was really wrong. And that's, I remember it because it was so painful. It was painful enough for me to question how I was doing business and how I was so focused on everything aside from the real things that were important. So I actually had to ask myself at the end of the day, what was more important, that I got more business done or that I honored the gifts in my life, which were my kids and my husband and my parents and my family. And I didn't want to wait till they were gone to recognize that they were really big gifts in my life. And so it took that. And I hope that it wouldn't take something like that for you that's listening. But I share this story because it took it getting at its worst before I could shift. It took me really evaluating my life, and that ended up being the blessing of how could I do it a different way. And so I asked myself, what do I really want at the end of the day? And I really wanted to be a good wife. I wanted to be a good mom, and I wanted to be a good business owner. I wanted to be a good partner. I wanted to be a good supporter to my own, relationships. I wanted to be a good mentor to my clients, and I wanted to do a good job overall. And so I looked at, what needed to happen in me in order to have that happen. And the biggest challenge of all for me was that all the work that I did started inside. It had to happen inside for me to shift. I had to actually recognize that I deserved to have success in my life because I didn't think so. That's why I kept myself last on the list, because I really thought it was supposed to be this hard. It was supposed to be this much work, and that was the only way. And so I started to question my beliefs. I started to question, what at the end of the day, how I wanted to live. And in that moment, I got that what I would love and what my definition of success was that every day I would feel peaceful, I would feel playful, and I would feel prosperous in my business and in my life. That was how this was born. That's how this message was born. And I defined that the new Superwoman way, which is living life on your own terms, nurturing you, who you are, and being willing to have it all, which is whatever it is that you want, not anyone else's definition. It's having everything you wanted. And so for me, having everything I wanted was that I was peaceful every day, right? Like that I was doing things that allowed me to stay grounded and centered in my inner guidance. That was really my heart's desire and Source's way to speak to me to fulfill that desire. Secondly, the playfulness. I wanted to have fun in business. I wanted clients that I loved working with. I wanted people that I loved working with. And I wanted to give myself permission to laugh and play at work, that it wasn't the old way, which for me was, that's for your personal time. Like I used to work in an office where, if you dare laugh, that's not professional. And so I learned that way. Now, of course, I know that I laugh and play on my training calls. I laugh and play with the people that I work with. I actually enjoy what I'm doing. And if I'm not having fun, I have an opportunity to change that. I have a team that I love working with, that I support and have good relationship with. I mean, I just really honor my clients. I absolutely enjoy working with them, and we have good relationships. And of course, the prosperity piece, I was working really hard for every single dollar. And not that I don't put forth effort, but I'll tell you why it doesn't feel so hard. Because I love what I'm doing. Like I would do it on the weekends. I will do it in the evenings because I'm so inspired by what I do. That's why it doesn't feel so hard. Why it felt hard in the past is because I did stuff I didn't like. I forced myself to do things that I didn't enjoy. So it felt really hard. And I was exhausted, right? When you make yourself do something you don't enjoy, It's exhausting because you're actually putting forth more energy than necessary, versus the opposite. When you're inspired by your work, it actually fuels you. And so I have unlimited energy. When I'm talking about the new Superwoman Pathway, I could talk about it over and over and over. And I might even talk about it at a barbecue in the weekends, or same with what I teach around launching. I love talking about launching. I love working with my clients around launching because I actually enjoy launching, and I tend to be in a launch at some point, like almost all the time, because for me it's fun. And so that's what I mean by being inspired, and that I didn't have to work so hard for the income. And of course, that's when it started to multiply. That's when I started to attract my favorite clients. That's when I started to attract my favorite people to work together. And do I have problems? Absolutely, I still do. Just like anyone, but I leap from that place versus fall over. Yeah, do I scrape my knees? I do. But it's just a different way of being. So I embrace that there'll be challenges, but I also ask for support as needed. So that's really, I think, what I wanted to share about the Superwoman Pathway. And so, as I mentioned in my story, I learned the flip side of what this new way of being was, and I also embraced it every day to this day. So this happened, of course, 2.5 years ago or so, that I really fell deeply in a place of realigning the way I am, and the way I show up, and the way I do business, and the way I live my life personally. And so from there, it's really just become a guidance, like a foundational piece of my values. Like, I ask myself pretty regularly how to stay in this place of peace, playfulness, and prosperity. That it's not like you just arrive and there's no more work to be done. It's a way of being. So as I started to share a little bit, if I'm not feeling peaceful, it's time to step back and say, what's happening here? Right? If I'm not feeling playful, what have I allowed in my life that doesn't feel good anymore? Where have I maybe took on more responsibility than I could handle? And now I could do something about it, because it's still things that happen, right? But now I have tools to be able to shift that around. I'm going to share some of the tools on this call as well. And same for prosperity. I will tell you that my experience in life and this way of being is directly affects and relates to my income. So if I'm not grounded or enjoying the work, if I have overloaded myself, overcommitted myself, what happens is I get exhausted, and then so do my finances. I see it. It's a direct reflection. If I'm running dry, my income starts to run dry. And so it's a great reminder to me to live in the overflow. And for me, that's abundance everywhere. So in other words, that gives me an opportunity to get back to my 3 Ps, whatever they are for you. For me, it's peaceful, playful, prosperous. So if I'm not feeling it, it is really an opportunity. I really do get to say, all right, where can I shift here? And that's where it starts. It really starts by the powerful questions that you ask. So let me dive into the 3 areas that I wanted to share, which you would have probably gotten in your invitation to attend this webinar. So one of those areas that I'm going to dive into as well is the 3 tools you can incorporate on a daily basis to stay peaceful, playful, and prosperous. So it's 3 things that I do regularly over and over, so I'm going to share those in just a minute. The second thing is how to get crystal clear on the business and life you want to create, so you can bring it to you like a magnet and across, and really just access the prosperity that you deserve. And the third area is, you would have seen, is the 7 core areas to tap into your own Superwoman pathway and techniques that you can use in your path. So I'm going to share with the 7 elements. Of course, I don't have time to teach every one. I have a whole course that teaches this. But I am going to tell you what they are. I'll tell you a little bit about them so you know, because it really was the path that I took. And of course, it didn't happen overnight, right? It happened through years of work. And did I have shifts? Yes, I had big shifts. And I'll tell you about some of those within 6 weeks of really starting to do some of this, I experienced big shifts in my life, and it's continued. It just gets better and better, but I still continue to work on these areas. And before we complete on this training call I am going to share some free gifts that I've created for you so that you can continue the learning as well. So I have some free audios that I'll tell you more about that you're going to be able to access, so stick around, and I will give you the link so that you can access those right away. All right, so why don't we just dig in here? And by the way, I love sharing, but I also love connecting with people who are on. I recognize that some people will be listening to the replay, but I love if you give to receive feedback. So you can share what you loved, share your ahas. If you're on live, you actually have an opportunity to ask your question, and I will check in and see if it's there. I can answer it. But I love to interact. I mean, this is what I enjoy doing. So I want to know that if there's something there, please ask. And if you're listening to the replay, please send it our way, and we'll be happy to connect with you. All right, so the 3 tools. What are the 3 tools? So I'll tell you what they are. Number 1, this is a big one, and this is meditation and visualization. So I kind of combine them. I know that they're somewhat 2 different things, and there's so many different ways to meditate. I'll tell you what it is for me, and I learned this because I was so much in chaos that it was even hard for me for the first time to meditate, because so much was running through my head. It was like go, 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 and I couldn't even sit still for a minute. And if I did, I would make myself feel guilty, like, hey, there's so much work to be done. What are you doing? And so I learned that to quiet my mind, right? Like to really get connected to inner guidance. And the only way to hear inner guidance is to quiet your mind and allow it to come through. And what I heard this, and I'll share it with you, is that, source is like a whisper, right? The inner guidance is like a whisper. So it takes space and allowing to really hear it to come through, where ego is more like a scream, which is the thoughts in your head that say you're not good enough, or you're doing it wrong, or keep going, suck it up, and those were things I used to hear. So that's why I can tell you that. But those are the things that would keep me continuing, right? The beliefs that I need to be hard, like what are you doing? Get to work. Success is hard work, and if you're not doing that, then you don't deserve this. And so those are all the things that. Because I kept myself busy, I would hear those like screams, right? Like they were loud in my head, until I really got grounded and started to do different healing works, meditations, hypnotherapy. That was a way to uncover, number 1, junk that was in my head, right? That was one thing. Secondly, it allowed me to let go of junk that I was hanging on to. And third, it allowed me to start to feel peace around the space that I craved. So it was really, really powerful. Now, I really enjoy visualization, like guided meditations. I absolutely love just being and then listening to something that guides me into this really peaceful state, like a meditative state. And it's like reprogramming my brain to this new way of peacefulness. So that's my favorite way to get grounded and get peaceful. And it took me doing that over and over again in a day, and for months and months and months. And to this day, I have a whole library of resources. But just to recap, there's a variety that you could access or use if you have a library already. But it takes repetition over and over. So if you're wanting to do a new way, then I learned from Jack Canfield, it's day 28, 29, and 30 of doing something every day that gives you the most benefits of actually changing and rewiring your brain to this new way. It's really, really amazing. So that's more of the science, and I've studied the science. I keep it simple and easy and tell you that it works, and to experience it, well, you see. The second tool, the second thing that I do to stay in this place of peaceful, playful, prosperous is I journal. So I've learned that journaling is just a really powerful way to move energy, right? Like when you feel feelings, if you don't express them, they actually start to bubble up and like until sometimes it's like holding them down until you feel like you need to explode. Especially if they're really big feelings, right? If you're super angry and you shove your feelings, then it builds into a bigger explosion like resentment until you finally explode. And the only reason I know that is because that's how I used to be. I would hold in and shove my feelings until I just couldn't anymore, and it would explode. Well, the flip side of now, I actually know that I need to move the energy. So it's not that I don't get mad. It's not that I don't feel my feelings. I do, but I give them a way to express, which is I journal, or I might express them verbally and tell the person or a friend. That's new to me. I didn't used to do that. I felt like I was burdening people. But I now have deeper relationships than I've ever had. So I just ensure I reciprocate that, right? Like if I listen and share, that I'm reciprocating by listening to them share, and vice versa. It's really, really powerful. And why not reap the reward of these powerful relationships versus cutting yourself off from that opportunity? Not saying that you are, but I know I used to. So journaling, again, if you don't want to tell a person, which I never wanted to, I used journaling. So if I got angry, I expressed it by writing, and I just wrote and wrote and wrote. And sometimes after that, I could let it go completely and feel at ease. I really could. It helped me feel clarity from that place. After I'd expressed all the emotion, I would actually start to get clarity, like, okay, now what do I want to do about this situation? What would be the next step so that this doesn't happen to me again? What could I learn from this experience? All of that was in the journaling, where I could actually leap from this place. If I had a serious challenge, I could actually take it and learn from it and move to a whole nother level. And when it came to relationships, I had an opportunity to have a much deeper relationship. So it's really, really amazing what happens. I'll tell you the third element. The third kind of process that I do that allows for the peaceful, the playful, the prosperous. This is a big one. So I focus on the best case scenario at all times. It sounds really, really simple, but I'm going to tell you this is actually huge, because this is what happens. This is what I found. Okay. So in the past, I mentioned to you, let me just move my screen here. In the past, I mentioned to you that, I had a really rocky, really rough first year. And I'll tell you part of it, why. I now know, looking back, why it was so rough, is I was focused on the worst case scenario. So, for example, in my business, I would feel anxiety. I'd feel fearful about the possibility that I wouldn't have enough money in my business to pay my bills. I would be afraid, like, when am I going to get the next client? What if I don't get my next client? What if this client cancels? What if this client wants a refund? And what if this? What if that? So I guess my focus was actually on creating that in the beginning, because I was so fearful, right? And fear is just imagining the worst case scenario, right? Like some of fear is the uncomfortableness of doing something new, but many times the fear is about, like, let's say, people's number one fear, and it was mine too, is public speaking. So for me, because I was so afraid of public speaking, what would go through my head was that I imagined myself screwing it up, that I didn't say the right things, that I didn't say what was valuable to others, that what would they think of me, and what if I stumbled or stuttered or didn't speak right or looked like a fool, or, like all of those is what kept me so afraid to public speak. So once I recognized that, oh, here's what's happening, and I learned this from a mentor. I have mentors in my life who teach me, and I take it and I apply it. And she said, well, what if you imagine the best case scenario? What if you actually visualize the best case scenario? And I thought, wow, well, the thought of, that I would speak my truth, that everything I'd say would come out smooth, that I would know what to say, that I would teach, the things that have been powerful, but in a way that people could connect and learn. And I really just got a clear visual of all the things that would have me feel excited to speak, excited to share, and excited at the opportunity. Was I still uncomfortable? Yes, until I did it more and more and more. But I worked through the fear of the unknown by actually doing it. And how I turned fear to excitement was the imagining of the best case scenario. So I actually would invite you to do that. Like even today, if there's anything right now that you feel fear around, like ask yourself, what are you afraid of, right? So in my example, the public speaking, just that I would mess it all up. So then in that moment, whatever it is that comes through, flip it around and say, well, if it was the best case scenario, what would happen here? And really visualize that happening. I use this everywhere in my business, before meeting, on the phone with a client. If I'm fearful in any way about any part of it, I would imagine the best case scenario, visualize it, which in my subconscious, it's like it already happened. And so I did that over and over and over. And now, anytime I'm afraid, I still feel fear, but I'm doing bigger and bigger things. My audiences are bigger and bigger and into the hundreds. Not quite the thousands yet, but the thousands online, I would say for sure. I imagine the best case scenario. I imagine that the right people are going to show up and hear the message. The right people that could be supported by the work that I'm doing are going to raise their hand and say yes. That the right people show up and I can support them. And, wonderful things happen. Their life transforms. They get wonderful results. I imagine all of these things, which exactly is why they show up, exactly why it's happening. And so that's, if I could say anything, I have these mantras that I continue to this day to keep in my mind that remind me about the best case scenario, which is imagine, one of my friends told me this, imagine that the universe is rigged in your favor at all times, that everything that's happening to you is always in your favor. And in that, I also like to say that the universe always says yes. So if I'm imagining the best case scenario, the universe is saying yes to it, then I'm welcoming that versus the flip side of imagining the worst case scenario. And if the universe says yes, I'm actually manifesting that, because we're always manifesting. So are we manifesting? We're manifesting where we're putting our thoughts and our feelings. So if our thoughts and our feelings are focused on really amazing things happening in our business and life, you will naturally manifest those things. And some of you may be saying, well, I am doing that, that's not working. Well, there could be some ways that you're not noticing, that you're putting the brakes on it showing up. Like maybe the person or the client has shown up and offered, and in some way you didn't catch up, follow through on something. This isn't judgment to you, but I'm just saying that there's all these things that aren't noticed when the thought is, this doesn't work. So I just want to highlight that, because sometimes people will say, and when I'm able to dig in with them one-on-one, I can actually hear and say, this is where I see the blinders are on, that actually it's right here in front, like it's at the tip of your nose. And I have mentors that tell me this too. So it's not that I don't embrace that for me, that there's times where I don't see it and I need support to help me see it. So the next piece I want to dive into, which is how to get crystal clear on the business and life that you want to create. So this is where I start every time. If I'm ready to maybe make a shift or envision something new, this is what happened to me when I got the call at 2 a.m. So in that moment, I had an opportunity to do this, which is visioning the life of your dreams. I'm a real advocate of the power of visualization. And that's because I have actually seen how powerful it is in my life. So what I did was I learned to visualize exactly what I wanted. And when you do that, you get even clearer, right? Like I actually could see myself and how I spent my days. That I had plenty of time in the evenings and the weekends where I could unplug and be with my family and barbecue and take trips, and I could see myself taking vacations and traveling. I could see myself, supporting big groups of people on my programs, and that I could see that I had like the best clients ever, that I loved their missions. I liked supporting what they were up to. I could see that I was so supported by my team that, they were doing things that I didn't even ask, and I just love, and that's happening, by the way. That happens to me right now, and I love it. I love that it's almost like we're on the same wavelength. I could see how I spent my days, what time I was waking up, and what a typical day looked like. With that clarity, and because I visualized it that I would get that clarity, I could actually replay that over and over and over and reprogram my subconscious in a way that would welcome it. Like, hey, this is a done deal. You already feel it in your body that things have shifted. And so I absolutely did that. I created my own. I went through the visualization, and then I every morning would visualize it. Visualize what's the best thing that could happen today. Before I went to bed, what's the best thing that could happen tomorrow? And I want to sit with that, like, oh, that it would go smooth, and all these things would fall into place, and maybe it's a new training or new people joining my community. I mean, I really just imagine all the things based on specifically what was happening. It's what had me sleep great and wake up ready and inspired, right? And is it perfect? No, but I'll tell you when it's not. When I'm having challenges, it's usually I've dropped one of these practices, and then I have an opportunity to bring it right back. So it's really cool. So that's what I would invite you to do wherever you are today. Those that are listening, I know some of you are going to be listening to the replay. Just take a moment, whether it's after the training or right now, if you feel inspired, to really just write it out and think about it in your mind's eye. What does it look like to have everything that you want? Everything, anything, all of it. And how would you spend a typical day? What would it look like in your business? What would you be working on? I just invite you to do this. There's a lot of power in doing it. And I'll tell you what happens after you do it. You're so inspired, and you feel like more of a pull to how to do things differently versus pushing and forcing. You will probably get insight into what shifts to make right away. And then if you're willing to take the next step from there, you have moved the ball already, gotten the ball rolling in the direction of having that. It's really, really awesome. So from here, I want to actually share what are these 7 core areas. And this, again, this is the path. This is exactly what happened when I had this big shift. I continue to have shifts in my life. But these are when I ask myself, and of course, once it happened, there were so many people saying, "Hey, what's different about you? What are you doing different? And so I was invited over and over to talk about it. So that's where I got clarity. Like, well, what did I do different? What were the actual elements? So here they are. So the first one I shared a little bit about already, which is creating my Superwoman vision. So I got really quiet and asked myself, what's really important? What to me is my definition of success? What do I want to embrace every day of my life? And how do I want to have it happen, which is the visualization part. Seeing it in my mind's eye, what it actually looks like, and doing that every day, over and over and over, so that I could really attract it, right? Because when you visualize, you raise your vibration. It's like sending a signal out there that, like, these are the people. It's kind of like a radio signal, right? When you tune into that frequency, you get that station. Same here. If you raise your vibration, you're working from a different level, a different place, and you attract anything that's like that, right? Like attracts like. So you will actually attract clients who embrace the way you now do business versus the opposite. So you will attract all of the things that you're actually thinking about by raising your vibration and becoming more aware and bringing it to you like a magnet. It's really pretty powerful. So what's number 2? Number 2, sorry, I get really passionate. So number 2 is your inner feminine. So I started with the vision. I started to do work on myself, and I may have mentioned to you that because I've done a lot of different calls. So I started with the very masculine energy of just doing, and I learned to tap into my feminine energy. And I took coaching, right? It took support to learn, like, what does that mean to tap into your feminine? It meant actually honoring me, my natural design as a woman, how a woman would do some things, right, differently than a man, the feminine energy of allowing, just that it was a really powerful energy, embracing my feelings, embracing all of the beauty of being a woman. It was, the learning isn't done, but it taught me a new way of even nurturing myself. It taught me more about the balance of masculine and feminine energy, and doing things that were authentic to me as a woman. So it's really, really awesome. The third component, the third kind of pathway, or I'd say more of a step, right? The third area that I worked on, I now call them Superwoman fundamentals, by the way, because I've done work on all of these 7 areas all the way to now, where I continue to just make, it just gets better and better and better. So the third area is creating Superwoman relationships, and this is about asking for and receiving support. So I did a free training call on this just this morning, and it was a 90-minute call. In fact, I'm going to gift that to you so you guys have access to it, just because it was just, I shared a lot of what I had never shared before, and I know this call is scheduled a lot shorter than that, but I want to give you access. So if you access the free gifts that I share a little bit later, I'll give you the link shortly. We'll make sure that we email you that training so that you can have access to that. But I really actually taught this whole piece around asking for and receiving support. This is personal, this is business. How do you get support, and so much support that your business multiplies? Because when you have support in your business, and of course the training call will go into much more details what I mean by that, but you are able to reach more people than you could possibly reach alone. And so when I embraced this in my business, it totally took off. And I took all of the practices that I'll share in that free training to have that happen and continue. And so that's what the third area is about: creating Superwoman relationships that support your business and life. The fourth area is Superwoman wellness, that supports your mind and body for success. So as I mentioned, part of my journey, I was running on fumes. I really didn't take great care of myself. I would work so many hours and forget to even eat. Like I would get to lunchtime and realize I hadn't even eaten anything, and which wasn't good, of course, for my health. And of course, I was lacking energy, and I still, to this day, sometimes I get really excited. I'm in the middle of a lunch and I'll forget, and my husband knows that, so he'll bring me in some treats and make sure that, I keep my energy high. I'm taking care of myself. I surely don't want to get, sick or have any, any health issues, So I'm looking at how do I make sure that I balance out the increase of energy outflow, which is what happens in a lunch, and ensure that I'm getting more rest, more water, really just, self-love practices. That's what it's all about, nurturing yourself, and there's a variety of ways to do that. So I actually teach a whole module around this area. And then the fifth area is Superwoman healing. This is about healing inner blocks that stop the flow. I mentioned to you that, it's natural. It's actually natural for us to be abundant, and many times when we're not, it's because there's some sort of block happening that either we're doing it, or something we're carrying as a belief around making it hard. I mean, I mentioned a lot of the beliefs that I've had, and so I see healing is like exercise. Just like if you would go to the gym and exercise to relieve stress and feel better and have more energy, you wouldn't, feel good and stop. You would actually continue so that you continue to feel good. Well, that's how I view healing. Like a healing for me, it's like there's all the challenges that could happen in day-to-day life, not to mention anything we've overcome in the past. So for me, once I opened up to healing in my life, I could heal normally. Like when I need to cry, I cry. When I need to work with a healer, I work with a healer, because there's stuff that's bubbling up that is something that could potentially stop me. And so I embrace it, that there's practices, even laughing is healing. Laughing, smiling, crying, all of these even you could do on your own that are really your body's way to heal. It's really, really amazing. You're releasing energy, and it's really powerful. I didn't know any of this years ago, so it's now that there's things I do regularly along with if I need extra support. So there's a whole teaching, and of course I collaborate with a lot of healers to share some of their work, because I believe in the power of healing and how it keeps me in a place feeling really grounded and peaceful and light. And so that's what Superwoman Healing is all about. The sixth area is about leaping into Superwoman Prosperity. It's about taking quantum leaps. So does it mean you need to take a quantum leap all the time? No, but I will say this. When I started to embrace the feeling the fear and doing it anyway and how to do that, I naturally had quantum leaps. I naturally leaped from that place to another level. And it continues to happen. I still take leaps. I still do things that are scary on a regular basis. But I now have a process of how to move through the fear. Like, what do you do when you feel terrified? You know, I can tell you one thing. When I feel scared, I imagine the best case scenario in that moment. If I'm scared about something like going on a big stage and sharing a message, I immediately imagine the best case scenario in that situation, which immediately gets me excited. And yes, again, it's a practice over and over. It might not immediately get you excited, but whatever the situation is, I can promise there would be a shift. That's for sure. Your whole body changes. Like, there's a shift of how you feel when you shift what you're thinking about. It's really powerful. So again, there's all of these sections that I'm talking about. I have a whole training course on it because they're all have processes and teachings around them that I couldn't be able. I wouldn't be able to do that here on this training, or else I'd keep you on until late tonight. But know that that was one of the elements. And then the final piece is what I call staying in the flow of peace, playfulness, and prosperity. It's all about flow, and flow is about balancing out what's happening. And so it's kind of like I mentioned, exercise, right? If you get to your ideal health, like your best health, you don't stop. To remain in that flow of good health, you would do all the things that got you there, right? And continue as a practice. And if, let's say, you don't feel good and you're skipping some of the tools, you might go back to that. Well, the same here with the flow of peace, playfulness, and prosperity. I mentioned some of the things that I do. And every day I look at my life, and if I'm not feeling peaceful for some reason, there's something heavy, I really do things to work with that. Like, what is it? And I uncover it, and I deal with it, and I, from that place, can feel peaceful again, that I made the right moves, I did the right things, I faced whatever was scary around it, and there's a lot of opportunity on the other side of that. The playfulness, the prosperity. If I'm not having fun in the things that I'm doing, I have an opportunity to say, you know what, I just don't want to do this anymore. And I could ask for somebody to help me. I could pay, I could have an intern. There's a lot of things I could do, but just the clarity of not doing it anymore and then making the steps will be what bring me back into the fun in my business. Same with prosperity. Right? If that's running dry for some reason because I'm not paying attention or I'm not doing the things that bring abundance in my business, I immediately have an opportunity to course correct and do some of the tools that I now know to do to create prosperity in my business. And it's really powerful. So it's all the tools. I have a lot in this area of teaching around tools that I do personally. And of course, I train others of how to do that and to stay in the flow. Because the flow is a choice. It's not a destination. You don't just arrive. It's everyday choice, and you can have shifts every day, right? Like starting now. So it's really awesome. So what I want to do from this place is actually tell you where to access the free audios, I promise. So you can go to thenewsuperwoman.com, and this is a teleseries that I did. I actually invited 24 awesome, just amazing women that I felt like had more to say about this new Superwoman way. And so I invited them on to do a series. And I want to give you the 3 popular audios from this series. Of course, they were all really great interviews. And so once you collect your free gifts, you can see if you want to access to all of them. They're available to you as well. But I wanted to give you 3 to just be able to take this, and anyone who was inspired with this way of being, I want it to keep going. I want to just give you some resources that will support that. And the 3 audios, one of them is on visioning. It's with someone that taught me more about how to vision the best case scenario. I talked about that today. Well, you get to walk through it with her and me on the call. So that's one of them. The second one is with Pamela Moss. She's somebody that to this day I continue to work with. We have a wonderful relationship. She's doing amazing things. And she did a call on the series that's about, let's see, 7 secrets to grow your dreams into reality with peace, power, and predictability. So you have access to that. And then, of course, I'm including an audio that I did that went even deeper into my journey, because I knew I only had, a short time with you today, but I talked more about it. Like, what are some of the big things that I overcame, and how did I do that? And if it saves you from any of the pain that I experienced, then I'm happy to share with details what some of that journey was. So those 3 audios are available. All you have to do is go to thenewsuperwoman.com. And again, just enter your name and email. We're going to email you the 3 audios there. And as I promised, we'll also separately send you an email for the free training about how to ask for and receive support. It's 90 minutes. I go through with very clear steps and specifics as far as how to do that, how to apply that, and the difference it made. Because for me, when I did this, when I went through this journey myself for the first time in 7 areas that I talked to you about, within 6 weeks, I brought in my biggest contract at that time. They're bigger now, but at that time, I signed a contract for $42,000. 6 weeks after opening up and releasing some of the junk, the different way that I used to do it. And from there, it just got better. I opened up to a new way of how I could serve people. I know it's not about the money, but what I believe is flow. If you're going to pour out your gifts to the world, it's totally okay for you to receive at a high level too. I learned that from my own mentor. There's nothing wrong with enjoying abundance. We're all made for abundance, so there's nothing wrong. It was that I used to believe that I couldn't have it, or that it was wrong to have it, or that I was taking something away from somebody by me having it. And I don't believe that anymore. I teach people how to have this and experiencing it. And I know that money makes you more of who you are. So in other words, if you're already giving and generous and you make a lot of money, I also know that the world wins with that, because you'll likely be very generous in your offering. I know for me, the more that I bring in, the more I can contribute to causes that I believe in. And I contribute at a high level because I believe in a lot of different organizations and nonprofits that are doing amazing work. And so I may not be able to volunteer as much as I'd like, but I could surely contribute to the people who are volunteering, who are doing it. And so I gladly receive and I gladly pour out, just knowing the laws of giving and receiving and keeping that in action in my own business. So with that, I'm going to give you the link one last time. And again, this is so that you can collect all the freebies that I talked about. And of course, I would love to have you join my community. If you feel alignment with anything that I've shared, I would love to receive you into my Superwoman community of women who also want to live life on their own terms and create the life of their dreams. We all can do it. And I just want to invite you in. I do a regular easing as well, so you'll get access to that, where I'm just sharing more of what's happening in my own life. I give gratitude for the people joining me in my community and people that I'm getting to meet you live through different events that have. There's nothing more awesome than to go somewhere and somebody say, hey, I'm on your list, I get your easings, and to actually put a face to the name is pretty awesome. So if you feel called at all, you feel aligned to what I'm sharing, I gladly welcome you in, and any ways that I could support you with the work that I'm here, and I'd love to hear more about you, the work that you're doing. So with that, I think I'm going to wrap up. Actually, let me check in real quick and make sure that if there's any questions. And let's see. If you had a question before we wrap up the call, we have a few minutes. If you have a question, anything, or you have a comment, you have an aha, I would love to hear from you. And I see there's people on, and I'll give you a second to do that. Again, I want to thank you for showing up. Thank you for accessing this way of being and giving me an opportunity to share, because it's really changed my life, and it's changed a lot of people's lives that have changed and made these shifts in their life. So it's really pretty amazing. So let's see. Let me just check in, and let me check. You might be noticing a person below me on the audio, and that's my wonderful, amazing online business manager. And so let me just make sure she doesn't have any notes for me of anyone who's on that has questions. I don't see any. So maybe I answered your question while we were on together. Thanks again for accessing the training through the community that you participate in. Hopefully you're joining mine as well. I would be happy to serve you. Again, I have two big areas that I share. The Superwoman message, which is about having the balance, right? And the other part of my message is called your dream launch. And that's about the specific teachings I teach is launching online. How do you launch online? And how do you do it in a way that's balanced, that's having fun, that's peaceful, that makes you money? And so that's the Superwoman way of doing it. And so that's how I have my two areas intertwined, because that's who I am. I'm an entrepreneur online. I love marketing. And I'm also a mom and a wife. And I love to, for me, it's more than just having a great business, but that I'm living the life that I enjoy and I'm fulfilled, and I get time to play with my family, and that for me is the Superwoman way. So with that, I don't see any questions. Oh wait, yep, nope, I don't see any questions. So thanks again for joining me. I'm glad that you were here. I hope that we're able to connect again, and who knows, we might be able to meet live somewhere. And just appreciate, who you are, and that you're open to this way of being, that you're open to the new Superwoman message, and that it's possible. So with that, I'm going to let you go. Thank you again for being here. And actually, I'll give the link one last time. I learned my lesson being on a training call that I didn't give the link often enough, and people were like, hey, what's the link? So I'm gonna give it several times this time just to learn from that. It's the new Superwoman.com. And again, that gives an opportunity to shower you with some gifts and some more audios to keep the training going of just this new way of being. So thanks again. I wish you all peace, playfulness, and prosperity in your business and your life. Thanks for the opportunity to connect with you, and hope to connect with you all in another way. Training, audios, live event, some other experience, or even joining my community. So thanks again for being here. Bye-bye, everyone.